Hello, everyone, and look.
Now, what I suggest you do is this. Have
Hello, everyone.
proceed
Welcome to the
so that
first episode
safe as
of
possible,
Express
not
Buddhism, covering the life of the Buddha, which has no controversy whatsoever. So
don't put
let that sink in, listen to our tune for a little bit, and then we'll get started.
But if you can't help words running in your head, don't interfere with them.
Okay, so let's get started with our first episode of Express Buddhism, presented to you by the Super Dharma Bros. So I am Super Dharma Bro Kevin, and Super Dharma Bro Chris is at his job right now, so he cannot weigh in. But we're gonna go through Life of the Buddha, and it's not as easy as it sounds. You know, it's not a very easy biography to write because of many variables. So let's start with early life. The best we can determine is that Siddhartha Gotama, because he wasn't the Buddha right from birth, is born in about 563 before the current era, and he was a prince of the Sakyan clan. Um, so a high birth in comparison to what you could have been. And the Majjhima Nikaya, the middle length of this course is 123, sort of explains some of the mystical elements of the birth. So, like, you know, taking 7 steps and then proclaiming that this is his last birth, that type of stuff can be found in there. He was brought up in the warrior class. Now, the caste system was not well established yet, but he was born of the warrior class, so he had training in just about everything when it came to fighting, but also intellectually as well, which means that he was athletically, intelligently gifted, but he also lived a very sheltered life, and we'll talk about that a little bit here. So he wanted to get out of this sheltered life and see the world, not the palace life. He wanted to see the world outside of the palace, and his father is just like, okay, but he tries to stage it so that he doesn't see any of the bad things in the world, because he wants him to stay in the palace and become the next king, which is more like head of a tribal republic. There weren't like what we consider traditional kingships at this time. But he does go out and about for several days in town. The first time it was staged, but he still saw an old man. So he saw the first divine messenger there. And then he went out again, disguised, and saw illness, did it again, saw death, but also saw an ascetic, which is sort of like a monk. And so he saw the 3 divine messengers of old age, illness, and death, which really dejected him. And then he saw the ascetic, which made him hopeful. And he leaves the palace life at age 29 and basically goes out into the woods and says, I'm going to try and find a solution to this old age, illness, and death thing. And some stories, some translations of the story and some interpretation of the story is that the birth of his son, Rahula, occurs at the same time he makes this choice, and others he leaves after Rahula is born, making it very difficult to leave. So in the Theravada tradition, we have Rahula is born, and he says, Rahula has been born to me, because Rahula means fetter, or which is like a bond. And he strives for awakening for the next 6 years. He goes to various teachers, Udaka, Ramaputta, for example, and all these teachers sort of give him something to work with, sort of like an outline. But he's like, nope, this doesn't lead to what I'm looking for. And Siddhartha practices austerities later on, such as breathless meditation and only a little bit of pea soup, like a spoonful at a time. At one point, he says, when I went to touch my belly, I touched my backbone. When I went to touch my backbone, I touched my belly. So that's how bad it was. And he realizes that that practice isn't going anywhere. That's self-mortification. And he sort of recalls an event when he was younger when he achieved what is called jhana, which is a higher state of concentration, sort of like in a spiritual sort of way. And so he's like, well, maybe that's the way. So he starts practicing that by, regaining some of his strength in his body. He practices that and becomes the awakened one, but not without obstacles. There's stories of thunder and lightning and Mara, the evil one, tempting him and all that jazz, and overcoming the ego. And so it's not an easy path. Now he figures all this out and he's like, it would be really bothersome to go around and try and teach this to other people because it's such a difficult teaching to comprehend. But Braham Sampati is aware of what the Buddha, Siddhartha is now the Buddha. And it's just like, oh my gosh, it'd be such a terrible waste if he didn't teach, because he's got the answers we need. So he convinces the Buddha to teach by going down and talking to him and saying, there are those that will understand it. And so the Buddha then travels to the 5 monks who used to practice with him when he was practicing austerities at Varanasi at the Deer Park, which is the ancient name, and gives the first discourse, which in the Pali Canon is the Samyutta Nikaya 5611. Now, over the next 45 years, he's teaching, and he's teaching lay people and monks. But he was not the only teacher. There were other renowned teachers. Nataputta of the Jains, and Jainism is still practiced today. And Makali Gosala of the Ajavikas, that's not practiced anymore. Those were the naked aesthetics. Now, he passed away at the age of 83 before the current era. That's our best sort of estimation. And in the Digha Nikaya, which is the long discourses, it takes a really long time to read this discourse. DN 16, those are his final days. And his last words are, "Behold now, bhikkhus, I exhort you. All compounded things are subject to vanish. Strive with earnestness." He basically just puts the Dhamma in summary for them and says, look, all things that are created are eventually going to pass away. And it's situational, because he's about to pass away. And so he's just saying, look, I'm not an exception to that. Strive with earnestness. So strive toward the goal with vigor and energy. And so that's basically it for the life of the Buddha. And I think, one of the things we can take away from the life of the Buddha is that he was just a common person, just like any of us, and just decided, there was something better out there to pursue. Okay, so that's it for Express Buddhism today. If you have questions, I'll put links and everything in the description so you can get a hold of us. But for those of you listening on the podcast, on Twitter, the handle is @SupadharmaBros. If you're on Facebook, type in on your search Super Dharma Bros, look for our page. If you're interested in email, you can do dharmabros2020@gmail.com, and that will get you in touch with us. So I'm going to say adios until next time, and let me know if you have any questions. All right, everyone, take care. Chat with you later.